Marketing action-adventure games in such a crowded genre is difficult. Developers must push their imagination to craft a unique experience for players, but that can often be lost in the final product. Developer Deck 13's Atlas Fallen seems to have all the pieces in order to be a gorgeous action experience. Across its desert environments, it doesn't quite turn out as hot as I would have hoped. Before we get into the review, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters for making this possible. Please take a second to check out patreon.com/noisypixel to support independent game journalism. Atlas Fallen stars a customizable protagonist in possession of a legendary gauntlet coated with a destructive history. As an unnamed, you escape your circumstances after finding this weapon and go on a mission to reunite those who have been enslaved and help them with any needs. The gauntlet is also embedded with a spirit named Niall, whose past is tied to it, and he's also curious about the current state of the world. So the two of you choose to travel together in search of answers while performing heroic feats. Unfortunately, despite its promising foundation, Atlas Fallen's narrative and characters become its weakest elements. From the opening moments, the game attempts to get you emotionally invested, showing you the miserable lives of the unnamed, but their relationships all come off as superficial. Then, after joining up with Niall, the course of the plot really tries to build up this friendship between the two, yet it never provides notable character moments or passive dialogue that makes an impact. Niall's voice performance is also pretty poor, which hurts the overall delivery. While the events of the narrative build up to something prominent, there's no initial tether to the world that leads you to care about it. Admittedly, I found the dialogue with the NPCs to be more engaging, but this mostly happens during some of the side quests. While playing, I can only describe Atlas Fallen's story and cast as generic. Now, I don't intend to downplay the effort that went into crafting this world, as it is full of optional journals that detail the history, but immersion is difficult unless you look for it. The actual gameplay of Atlas Fallen improves the experience. I'd even go as far as to say that its exploration is some of the best when compared to most modern titles. First off, the movement, aside from the sand sliding, is very satisfying. You quickly gain the ability to perform multiple horizontal dashes in the air, which allows the level design to become more creative, emphasizing verticality and distance and rewarding those who go out of their way. You're bound to find rewards in spots you did not think the team would have thought anyone would ever bother to reach. This is even the case in dungeons that mirror the vastness of the outside levels, providing a sublime sense of discovery. This is what encouraged me to keep going, as the gameplay elements made up for the forgettable cast and narrative. The combat and character customization are fantastic, even if at points it feels more conceptual than actualized. In combat, the gauntlet morphs into different shapes depending on which primary and secondary weapon you have equipped. Combos then interweave between the two equipped weapons, which all have unique skills, so there's plenty of variety. However, there's much more to this thanks to the presence of the momentum gauge at the bottom of the UI. While you deal hits, the gauge fills, with each reach notch enabling the usage of a new tier of skills and more raw damage output. But this is at the cost of you taking more damage too, since this becomes a transparent risk and reward feature where you have to judge if you want to use the skills that will lower the momentum gauge for defensive purposes, or if you'd rather be a glass cannon, simultaneously enduring and dealing higher damage. Moreover, the momentum gauge notches correlates to slots for essence stones, which is gear embedded with beneficial effects that can be inputted into the tiers of the momentum gauge. Honestly, all of this sounds incredibly confusing, but I never found myself actively paying attention to these systems. The enemy variety is sadly lacking, so you can reach a point where you can mindlessly defeat foes and not have to pay attention to much of the systems. Further, the parry mechanic, which can be used to refill the momentum gauge if used successfully, is far too generous. The enemies in Atlas Fallen are well designed, yet the way in which you can parry everything with little effort made combat a one-note affair. The many character customization options and general combat variety made these encounters a breeze. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the character building. I just wish that I had gameplay stakes attached to it rather than feeling like I've experienced everything combat has to offer too early on in the narrative. As for performance, Atlas Fallen is fair, though you'll come across instances of slowdown and texture pop-in. None of it is too noticeable though. At the very least, I don't recall any gameplay moments where I was negatively impacted because of performance faults, so it's not a necessary factor to be cautious of beforehand. Atlas Fallen can be a welcome palate cleanser in the midst of large-scale releases, with resemblances to older action games. There's a sort of nostalgia here for crowds who desire these experiences. However, while the exploration and sense of discovery are outstanding, most other elements, like the story, character writing, and excess customization, make it fall short, crafting a passable, if forgettable, experience. Noisy Pixel is giving Atlas Fallen a 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.